Hello, folks. Welcome to episode 7, season 2 of the GOAT series, folks. I'm your host, Jeremy Hadler, and today we'll be talking about the greatest Giants player of franchise history of all time.
All hail the New York Giants!
With special guest Eric. Thank you, Eric, for joining us.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go over the rules here once again here, like I always do on the GOAT series, which we choose 5 candidates who we think is the greatest Giants player of all time in franchise history. The criteria that we always look for this in the GOAT series, the criteria we always look for the candidates, especially the accomplishments with the team, the tenure of the team, how they played, stats with the franchise, on and off the field of what they were like. We also do honorable mention, and if the guest wants to have an honorable mention, like Eric here, if he wants to have one, he can do it. But we usually like to put together of having one honorable mention, so we'll do that to start out with. And at the end of the video, as always, we choose our ultimate Giants GOAT here. Let's start off with our honorable mention here. This was both of ours. Honorable mention we have is Mel Hein, played center. His nickname is Old Destructible. Played 15 seasons for the Giants. 2-time NFL champion. 1-time NFL MVP. That's rare for an offensive lineman to win an MVP award. 8 first-team All-Pro. 4 NFL All-Star game, that was pre-Super Bowl era, made the Giants Ring of Honor, has number retired number 7 with the Giants. He's a Hall of Famer. Stats, he did play linebacker on defense too. We have to give him credit for that. He had 10 interceptions. That is the most you're going to get out of his stats due to back then, because the statistics were not up to it until we get to Lawrence Taylor, who we're going to talk about, obviously. The stats were not up to his era and when he played, so that was the best he did when he played, obviously, as a center, but also played defense too. Eric, what do you think about Mel Hein?
I think right there, you said it. He played center, was an unbelievable center Pro Bowl, and then I'm sorry, there's no Pro Bowl back then, but, all Pro back then. And then he also played defense and had 10 picks. So, I mean, you don't have anybody now that plays both offensive line and defense. So, and as an honorable mention, I think he's absolutely the perfect pick. It's just crazy to think when you look. I even forgot about him, and then when we talked about him, I was like, holy cow. I forgot he played both offense and defense. So, I mean, so good.
Definitely. I mean, going back to like what you mentioned about playing defense and playing offensive line, like the versatility with him, like there was a lot of versatility back then in his era, but playing center and defense, like that's very hard position to do. Like I know Sammy Bow for Washington, he got to play punter, quarterback, and play defense. But Mel Hein, he got to play both sides, which you don't see that today. I still think that's pretty amazing when he was pretty good as a center and pretty good defensively too. So we got to give him credit here for that.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Next player on our list, which this player has been very controversial in sports media recently here, ladies and gentlemen. That is Eli Manning. Played 16 seasons for the Giants, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, 1-time Walter Payton Man of the Year, 4-time Pro Bowler, Giants Ring of Honor, Giants number 10 was his number, got retired too. His stats, folks, 60.3% completion percentage, 57.23 passing yards, 366 passing TDs, 244 interceptions, 84.1 pass rating. He had 27 comebacks, 37 game-winning drives. Eric, what do you think about him? Because obviously the big controversial of him has been about will he make the Hall of Fame? And some people say that he's better than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I think those people might be crazy as a pure quarterback. I don't know if he's better than Aaron Rodgers, and what's he, just about 500 in his career? So that was the whole big thing about him, being that he may make the Hall of Fame, he may not. I mean, you got to look at him and say, listen, he beat the undefeated Patriots that year, won the Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl MVP another year when the Giants won, made that ridiculous pass and beat the Patriots twice. So, I mean, let's get realistic. That doesn't get any better than that. And it's funny thinking about it, because when they traded for Eli Manning on that day, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that a brother is going to be as good. Like, you don't see too many two brothers that are like Hall of Famers or unbelievable. And I'm like, it's going to be like Henry Aaron and Tommy Aaron. I'm like, Peyton's already awesome. And then he came and, man, he just was clutch, did exactly what he needed to do. And I'm not worried about the record so much. I mean, what's his Joe Namath's in the Hall of Fame with a negative record, and gosh, he was terrible. Sorry, Joe Namath terrible, but Eli clutch. And for me, there wasn't more fun than watching him play. And then obviously beating an undefeated Patriots team, which the 72 Dolphins love, and then beating another Patriots team it just doesn't get any better living up here in the Northeast, working for a company that has season tickets to the Patriots, and then the Giants beating them twice, and it's got, and just you see it now, like in the Tom Brady roast. He even said it. He's like, I can't come and roast him a third time. It's just he's got everything. Is he a Hall of Famer? Borderline. I mean, I guess if you're going to put guys like Namath in and other guys, you kind of have to. I mean,
Mhm.
he won a Super Bowl MVP, two Super Bowl MVPs, two championships, defeated the only undefeated regular season team. Well, not the
Mhm.
only, but the second one, for the one that had the most games. I,
Yep.
I don't know. For me, uh, you know, what about you? You think he's a Hall of Famer?
Well, when you put it that way, the Namath part, I would agree. I wouldn't like if I'm being pure, I wouldn't give him the Hall of Fame. Like oftentimes, like as you mentioned about the Phil Rivers, Eli Manning trade, I feel
Yeah,
like they are very similar. Not like the Super Bowl, like how obviously Philip did not win a Super Bowl and Eli did. But if you look
right.
at their like stats, they're pretty similar, almost
Yeah,
even like how they grew, how they were with the franchise. So for me, I probably wouldn't put Eli Manning a Hall of Famer, like as you mentioned, borderline.
yep,
But if you're letting like if you gotta have consistency of like, all right, if you're letting Joe Namath in, then you kind of have to let Eli Manning in. Like that's the
right.
ridiculousness to me. Like you gotta have some kind of borderline and consistency with that. Like that's like I think that needs to be adjusted, especially for Joe Namath. I mean, obviously there's other Hall of Famers, but the biggest one is Joe Namath. Like
Yeah,
he's the most overrated quarterback I will say of all time. I'm not sorry, Jet fans. He is.
absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And it's some of my buddies are huge Jet fans, and they all like give me the evil eye, and they're like, "Oh, you can't talk." I was like, "You can't talk about Joe Willie like that." I said, "Listen, he won you a Super Bowl 100%. Nobody in my era of that. I mean, last time they won, I was born in '75, so I'm an old man, but I'm not even old enough to see a Jet Super Bowl. So." I mean, let's get realistic. It's Joe Namath. I mean, good God, look at his numbers. He finished with the Rams at the end. I mean, stop it. I just can't. So, if, like you said, if you look on that, but like you were saying, you got to kind of readjust too. I mean, where do you draw the line? You
Mhm,
got to start figuring it out, draw a line, and then you can't just put him in because Namath's in. You just got to
mhm,
understand that in the past somebody made a mistake, put him in, and it is what it is.
mhm.
So
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Eli. I mean, as a kid watching him, I mean, he was pretty awesome to watch. Like, I think my favorite game of watching with Eli was probably either the Saints Giants game where that went so high scoring in the Superdome, or the time with Odell Beckham and Josh Norman. That was one of the best games I've seen with Eli Manning. Like how that fight went kept going on the whole time. But
yeah,
Eli was super cool and chill and like helped him get it through. Like Eli was a pretty cool quarterback, especially watching as a kid. I did hate him when he beat my team. I will admit that. When we had the chance to go back to back, and Eli he has to ruin people's like every time you're gonna go win a Super Bowl. Eli has to be there and just be like, no, you're not getting that. Even if Peyton's like the better brother and like has lost to Brady, where Eli has not lost to Brady in the
yeah.
playoffs.
He didn't, and he went into Green Bay and won too. I did not expect that. Believe me, I was watching that game and I'm like, "There's absolutely no chance." And then I was watching on and on. I was like, "Holy cow, this is a special season!" And then they went in, and believe me, I don't let your father forget about that either. Every time I talk to him,
Well, we got a revenge back in the 2016 where new Giants players had the vacation time in Miami.
oh god,
So that's a
that
little
uh,
redemption for me.
yep,
Even if Odell had to punch a hole in the wall after the game too, I will let you guys know about the Hail Mary. Even if that year was way worse for me, I will still say that to you guys.
100%, definitely. Odell, as talented as he was, just was a little bit out of his mind. I think he's come back to earth now, but
Mm.
he ruined a lot of that Giants teams.
All right, let's get to our next player here, who everyone knows if you watch Good Morning America or you watch Fox Sunday, the pregame, he's always on there talking, like giving the analysis on some of these players here. That is Michael Strahan. Played 15 seasons with the Giants. He's a one-time Super Bowl champion. The year, once again, beat my team and went to go beat the Patriots, which I don't hate. I'm fine with them beating the Patriots, but he had to beat my team, so that sucked for me. He's a one-time Defensive Player of the Year, 4 first-team All-Pro, 2 second-team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Sacks of the Year. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a one-time NFL forced fumbles co-leader. He made the Giants Ring of Honor. He's in the Hall of Fame, as I mentioned before. He's guys number retired just a few years ago, number 92 of the Giants. And another thing he also took me off, just being my Packers even more, especially in that NFC Championship game with Brett Favre. That annoyed me more, even though I wasn't really old yet. But I remember a little bit with my dad for that part. His stats, real quick: 854 tackles, 141.5 sacks, sixth most all-time NFL history, 4 interceptions, 24 forced fumbles, set the NFL record for the time being during his career, the NFL sacks leader. However, technically, if you go watch some of the plays, they gave him a sack, even though it should not have been a sack. But for the record being, he has it. So he's tied with TJ Watt, who said it. But it was 22.5 sacks. That's tied for the most. I mentioned with TJ Watt. Also tied the seasons for leading the league in sacks twice. And he beat the perfect season Patriots, which everyone loves that. And just amazing. I like that. What we got about Eric?
Yeah, we got to thank him for the sack record. We got to thank your man Brett Favre for just taking the dive at the end in Giant Stadium. I don't want to get hit. Let me just. I have a wink. That's a wink, wink handshake agreement on that one. I'm a Giant fan, and I know that. I'm not even oblivious to the fact that that was not a sack. I mean, I guess in the pure word is a sack, but I mean, let's get realistic. It's not. I mean, he was fantastic. Everything he did was awesome. And I always find it amazing, and I always laugh because Michael Strahan now in his life is everything Tiki Barber wanted to be. Tiki Barber left the Giants early to go to NBC to do everything that he could do, and then he ended up in that scandal, and Strahan took over, and now Strahan is everything. What doesn't this guy do? He hosts the freaking $100,000 pyramid. I was watching the other day with my kids, and he popped on. So, but getting back to his football, the field, the guy was unbelievable. I mean, he was just a machine. He came, like you said, 15 seasons, all with the Giants. I just felt like he was always there, and he just so good. And it's tough to say, forced fumbles, defensive player, and again, like you said, beat that Super Bowl champion. Anytime you beat the Pats and Brady, it doesn't get any better than that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, just going like back as you mentioned, like him with the one time and being the Patriots, like he was super dominant in his position. I mean, Pro Bowls to me are like determines to me how consistent the guy is. 7 Pro Bowls, that tells you he's pretty consistent, and a total of 6 first and second team All Pros. That tells you like he was consistent. In my opinion, Pro Bowls are like average, above average players.
Yep.
But with first team All Pros, it takes you to another level to see how dominant you are at your position throughout your entire career, especially in that 2000s decade where that was a lot of pass rushers, pretty good ones. But Michael Strahan dominated. He dominated that position a lot.
That's true. That's a really well put. How you think the difference between like a Pro Bowler and then an All Pro. A Pro Bowler, you could just have a year and you're in and you're in. But like you say, All Pros, that means you are in 7 years out of 15. And some years he was hurt, but he's durable. He was that kind of guy. I mean, he's the kind of guy you wanted on your team. Like a Reggie White for you, same kind of guy.
Yep.
You just want him on your team. He's just going to get in there. He's going to get hard nosed. He's going to smash people, and he's not going to take any. He's not going to take any crap from anybody.
Exactly.
So,
yeah,
love that
definitely.
guy.
Yep. Next player on the list here, we got 2 more players after this, is Emlyn Tunal. Played 11 seasons for the Giants. He played cornerback, folks. CB, not quarterback, CB, folks. 6 first-team All-Pros, 9-time Pro Bowler, 2-time punt return yards leader, made the Giants Ring of Honor, made the Hall of Fame. Stats, folks: 74 interceptions, 15 fumble recoveries, 12 fumbles. He was the very first African American and the first player who played strictly as a defensive back to be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. What you got on about him, Eric?
Well, I did not know that. And reading over the notes, I saw that. That's fantastic. I mean, it obviously is a little bit before my time, and I've heard my father talk about him and how good he was. And my father being a diehard Giant fan for God knows how long now. He's 80, so he's been a Giant fan since he talks about the 50s like they're the greatest thing ever, and the Giants. So, but seeing him and seeing all these stats, I mean, you can't beat that. Again, talking All Pros, first team, 11 season for the Giants, 6 first team All Pros. Again, a 9-time Pro Bowler, so that's not a fluke because he got to the Pro Bowl 9 times with 6 times as a first team All Pro. So right there, I mean, fantastic. There's nothing more. I guess the only thing I would say is I wish I could have seen him play, instead of
Mhm.
seeing just highlights. That kind of guy
Yeah.
would be, a kind of guy I would love to watch and think he would have been awesome to watch in this day and age, with
Mhm.
the punt return yards and, the interceptions, the fumble recoveries. That's cool. I mean, for me, I like seeing punt returns and
Yeah.
things like that. So that would be kind of cool. I wish I could have saw him is the best thing I could say.
For me, real quick, then I'll get back to you. I think the interesting fact I will say about him is after he left the Giants, he went to go play for my team and he won a Super Bowl with Vince Lombardi. But since he played defense, he had Tom Landry as his defensive coordinator, and Vince Lombardi was the offensive coordinator back in his playing days. So that's pretty cool to have like one of the greatest coaches,
Yeah,
not as your head coach, but as the defensive coach to help you out. Like
that's insane.
it can't get better than any of that. It's like
No,
when you have arguably two of the best like coaches of all time. I mean, that's just amazing to see that though.
I did not know that either. That's fantastic. And like you said, can't talk any more about that. That is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. I think going back to like the fumble recoveries and interceptions, like obviously he's a ball hawk if we're gonna see 74 interceptions, great instincts, we're gonna say. And I like from what I read about him, he would get hurt a bunch of times, but he was very durable and played through it. Like we were mentioning about Michael Strahan or other guys like Eli Manning a bit who got banged up sometimes. Like they still find ways, even if they get hurt, they find the ways to get back in the game and make an impact for the team.
definitely.
Hmm. Next player on our list is Harry Carson. Played 13 seasons with the Giants. He's a Hall of Famer, one-time Super Bowl champion, 4 second-team All-Pro, 9-time Pro Bowler, made the All-Rookie team his rookie year, Giants Ring of Honor. Stats, and again, the stats, well, it's back in the old times where weren't very statistical back in the days, as we're mentioning here, like with Michael Strahan and Eli Manning. 19 sacks, 14 fumble recoveries, 11 interceptions. He was the team captain for 10 years. That is very good to have if serving as the captain of being pretty good on the field. Obviously, he was the heart and soul of that Giants defense, but off the field too, he was very helpful of like being involved in the community too. What do you think about him, Mary?
I mean, it unbelievable how he was. I mean, just a mainstay. The guy is, and like you said, there was no stats. So when you think about what was he a 9-time Pro Bowl,
Yeah.
four team second team, but then you got to worry like the Redskins had guys back then that had a defensive line. There was so many people that had the Bears, like all these. He was in the same time as all of these guys and still
Mhm.
stood out. And like you said, off the field, he was the polar opposite of Lawrence Taylor. On the field, he had to keep Lawrence Taylor in check. I don't even know what he did off the field. I'm assuming he stayed away from Lawrence Taylor, but together with him and Banks and Taylor, I mean, those guys are ridiculous. I mean, Harry Carson just fantastic. And now you hear him on the radio, and I kind of just love listening to his old stories. And he just seems like one of those guys that you'd break a finger or something, and he'd be like, "I'll just tape it up. I'll get out there. Just let me do that." Or I didn't like the quarterback. Let me just rush him and smash him, and I'll be fine. But that's how I always feel about him. He's that guy that just and like you said, just the captain. So people looked up to him and wanted to
Mhm.
be his teammate. So for him, Harry Carson, my guy, I love that guy in those teams in the '80s. Just phenomenal for me. One of the guys that you would have loved to see play in that whole '80s, '85, '86, '87 when the Bears and the Redskins and those guys were just crunching it out. I mean, just a good time. Yeah, but you saw Reggie White, so you know.
Yeah, I saw the highlight tape. I saw the
Yeah, I
highlight
was gonna
tapes of
say
him.
absolutely.
All right, let's get to our last player who I think everyone knows who this is. If you are a football fan, you should know who this is. Even if you're like a kid, you should still know who this is, honestly, people. That is Lawrence Taylor, LT, not LaDainian Thompson. That's Lawrence Taylor, ladies and gentlemen. Played 13 seasons with the Giants, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 1-time MVP, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, his rookie year, 8 first team All Pro. I mean, that you can't get better than that. 8 first team All Pro, 2 second team All Pro. But he also made the Hall of Fame, 10 Pro Bowls, 1-time sack leader, made the Giants Ring of Honor, retired with the Giants, 2-time NFC Player of the Year, all rookie team his rookie year. Stats. Now, this is when the stats kind of came out, folks. 9 interceptions, 142 sacks, 1,089 tackles, and 11 fumble recoveries. What do you think about him, Eric?
He's the guy. He revolutionized the outside linebacker position. I mean, there's literally no one that there's nothing. There was nobody that was like him before him. I mean, it was phenomenal. Defenses or offensive lines had to pretty much figure out how to stop him. And the amazing part about him is he could go from sideline to sideline in a flash, like a cornerback, like a defensive back. He was so incredibly fast, which was just unbelievable. And getting around the big guys, especially I used to watch the Redskins and they had the hogs on the offensive line. I mean, he would just tap them, get around them, and then he would just drill. And sorry, all apologies to Theismann. He did break his leg, which was heinous and disgusting. But I
Yeah.
mean, between him and Jaworski, I used to just see him just pulverize those guys in the NFC East. And I just remember, man, the interception that he had, I want to say it was on Thanksgiving in Dallas when he ran it back 99 yards for a touchdown. Just anything. To me, this is the guy. I mean, if you're a Giant fan, and like you said, if you're old, you're young, this is the real LT. It's not Tomlinson. I mean, this is the guy. I mean, let's get realistic. It's his off the field antics. Sure, not everybody liked him. I mean, that's the way it's always going to be. And the questionable
Mm-hmm.
things after that he retired and the nonsense. Yeah, I mean, is he a great person? Don't know. Fantastic football player, the best. So that's how I look at it. If we're just talking football, that's my guy.
I think the funniest story I've ever heard of Lawrence Taylor is, well, there's two funny stories. One, he started in Waterboy, which was funny to me, with Adam Sandler. Like he just showed up, and it was like that was very fun seeing him. But the other thing with Lawrence Taylor was there was a practice meeting going on. Like I think back when it was a Super Bowl time, like when they were winning and everything. He slept the entire meeting, if I'm correct. He slept the entire meeting while they're going everything. And the coach woke him up, or like somebody woke him up, and the coach asked him, like, all right, what the heck did you learn? And he literally goes up to the board and does everything. He literally like does it detail by detail. He slept through the entire like practice session of film and knew it right before. He didn't even have to show up to it. He knew it.
Yep. And that's the kind of guy he was. I mean, it's crazy, that was probably because he was partying off the field and doing what he was
Yeah.
doing. But it just showed you how when he was focused and ready to go, the guy was the man. Not too many people could sleep through anything and then be able to go up in front of the classroom, in front of the teammates, and then show exactly what you needed to do. So right
Yeah.
there, I mean, that just shows you LT's the man.
Now we get to our ultimate Giants goat here, folks. As we've gone through Eli Manning, Strahan, Tunnel, Carson, Lawrence Taylor here, we will start with our guest here, as we always do when we have guests on. Eric, who is the greatest Giants player of all time up to this point?
For me, and we talked about it off air, I think Lawrence Taylor is the greatest individual to ever put on a football uniform in all of pro football. I know it's very controversial, but like I said, redefined the outside linebacker position. People had to basically play against him. I don't know if he made Carl Banks' career, but he made Carl Banks a whole lot better. I mean, Harry Carson obviously helped him as well, but man, the guy flew, the interceptions, how fast he was, and just, coming out of Carolina, North Carolina, he was, they said he was going to be good, but nothing like this. I mean, I always think of all my Patriots fans because I'm here up here in the Northeast, and they're like, "Oh, Andre Tippett's the guy for the Patriots answer to Lawrence Taylor," and I'm like, "Don't ever say that again." I'm like, I can't even listen. Andre Tippett played he might have had the same number. That was about the only thing good for him. I used to just crack up, but LT, my guy, I mean, maybe I got to start readjusting as I get older and see more players out there. But man, there's just pure love for Lawrence Taylor on the field. And just talking again, everything directly on the field, nobody better, in my opinion. Off the field, there's probably about a million people better, but that's my opinion of everybody we've talked about.
Okay.
Shout out to Phil Sims and Tiki Barber, a couple of other guys that would be around, but other than that, LT is the complete guy in my
Okay.
opinion.
Sweet. Okay. For me, well, I'm gonna mention this guy, and I know Giant fans are gonna hate him. Daniel Jones never gonna put on a Giants uniform after this upcoming season. Saquon Barkley, well, he's gone. Xavier McKinney went to my team, so that's great. You got John Runyon for my team, so you can have him. I don't care. But going back to the list here, to me, I think it comes down to one player. That's Lawrence Taylor, because Eli Manning, he won the Super Bowl. What we talked about earlier about the Hall of Fame, like he had to dominate his position. I mean, obviously there were great quarterbacks during his time, and especially like during that 2010 era and 2002. But he did not dominate as you would expect guys to. Like the numbers a little bit like borderline Hall of Famer. Like that's not cutting for me if you're trying to find who's the greatest Giants player of all time. Now off the field, I give him credit. I will put him up there like a little bit higher. But on the field, I think that's a big concern to me. Like he had to be a little bit better. I mean, obviously you can't get better than win the 2 Super Bowls, but later part of his career, like after the last Super Bowl, he started declining a little bit here and there. So I'm not going to give it to him. Michael Strahan, I would love to put him up here, but I just think Lawrence Taylor's the better guy. I just think Lawrence Taylor, like obviously you mentioned before, changed the game, revolutionized position, played like a CB out there with his speed. He was Superman. He literally could play anything through it, like whether like obviously we mentioned the off-field issues, but even with that, he was when he was focused and everything, like you mentioned, he could play through it and dominate. He made guys try to figure out how to readjust, made O lines rethink the game, made quarterbacks even rethink the game, like Ron Jaworski or even like other quarterbacks out there. But really, Ron Jaworski, because that was Lawrence Taylor's favorite guy to sack. No offense, Eagle fans, but that was it. But like he would just get after guys and everything, even through fighting for injuries too. Like you just don't see that. And down his position, like arguably the greatest player of all time in football history. I'm not going to go that far. I think he's up there, but that's another conversation for another day, though, folks. But I think to me, it's Lawrence Taylor.
Couldn't agree more. And I think that's where the one thing, like you said, like we talked about, revolutionizing the position. You just can't like the other guys on there. Hall of Famers, good. Not Eli Manning Hall of Famer. Strahan, yes, those guys just really good. But when you get somebody that revolutionizes a position and then, like you said, has to rethink everything about this guy and build a game plan around him, it's got to be him. There's nobody else.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely. So that's it here, folks. Our GOAT is Lawrence Taylor, the greatest Giants player of all time as of right now. Probably will not get changed for the next so many years unless somebody decides. Daniel Jones, maybe Daniel Jones. We can see that. I don't know. I mean, that money's making him look like it, but not the playing on the field, though.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But folks, again, let us know in the chat here who you think is the greatest Giants player of all time. Who should have been mentioned on the list? Who should have been a candidate? Let us know in the chat. And again, Eric, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jeremy.